And we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rick Weaver. I'm joined tonight by my host, Blake Duckworth, and by Mr. Barry Robertson of Prayni and Squatchin'. Everybody I know in the Bigfoot world knows Barry. Tonight, we're doing things a little differently. We're going to be talking about a few encounters that Blake and I and Barry have had over the last couple of weeks. I put a live stream up on Facebook if anybody wants to click on it and join us. You're welcome to do so. We'll be glad to have you. So, Barry, what I know you'd posted on your Facebook that you'd had few encounters over the last couple of weeks up there on your place. What's been going on?
Mostly just vocals, knocks. Heard a really good vocal, I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday night. I walked outside for something. Valley across the road here, there's a lake at the bottom of it, pretty good sized lake. And it, like I've described it, it sounded like the combination of a bellow and an old school police siren or an air raid siren. I mean, it was loud, and I bet it went on a good 12 or 15 seconds. I was like, that is not a coyote. That is not an owl. That is not dogs barking. I mean, it was distinct.
Right. So by the vocal and all, could you actually tell whether it was a full-grown squatch or a younger one? Or
I'd have to go full-grown just with the, like I said, it probably went on 12 or 15 seconds and was fairly loud for that lake's probably a mile and a half, 2 miles down in that valley from the house.
Oh, yeah, so yeah.
It didn't sound like it was standing right next to me, but it didn't sound like it was 2 miles away either.
Right, that's the way Blake and I have encountered them down at Altoona Lake and over at Blue Ridge.
Did it have, like, when you describe it that way, did it sound like a siren almost?
Like I said, it reminded me of the old school air raid or tornado sirens that with almost a bellow mixed in with it.
So
it's just a distinct noise.
Was it real deep?
Moderately, it wasn't like Oak Ridge Boys bass singer deep, but it had some bass in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like the same thing Blake and I have encountered down at Altoona and over in Blue Ridge and around this area down in here. We were out this past weekend ourselves down on Johns Mountain, WMA, and what got us down there was there was a guy that had contacted Blake probably a week before and had told Blake an encounter they had down there. Blake, you want to describe it for him, buddy?
That's too bad. Yeah, one of my buddies, they just went camping down there in that area. And basically, long story short, they just heard like a bipedal creature run away from their camp. I really don't know any more details than that. I mean, far as him himself, he's not like into Bigfoot. I mean, me and him's had some conversations about it before, but I mean, he was kind of on the fence. He's never had a person encounter, but he's not, not saying they're not possible. But for him to call me and tell me, I mean, that's pretty significant. I mean, he didn't. He said he's never heard an animal like it before. He said he could definitely tell it was bipedal. And I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, it wasn't anything, no visual or anything like that. He just basically could tell it was a bipedal creature running away from their camp. And this area, I mean, we've done a little research in this area, but, and we've actually heard of a lot of reports, but the problem is, I don't know how many acres this place is, but it's wildlife management area. So, I mean, you're looking for a needle in a haystack when you're just going off of when you have no pinpoint locations.
And the haystack keeps moving.
Yeah, and so that was one of the actually pinpoint locations that we've gotten from that area. So that is the reason we actually went over there. You want to tell them the rest, Ricky, or kind of what
Yeah,
happened after
we got
that?
over there. We got over there at Pilcher's Pond area, and pulled in and got out and got her cow. Blake got the GoPro and all ready, and I had run off and left my big lights and just had a little cap light that I use, and we'd there's an old road bed that runs up from the parking area about a mile up toward the lake's at, and we'd started up it, and we got to noticing as we were walking, there was something up in the woods, and you could tell that it was bipedal, and it was paralleling us going up through there. And we went probably, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile, a little further up through there, and both of us just became overwhelmed with this feeling that we were being watched. And so, with no more light than what we had, we decided, maybe it'd be best that we turn around and go back to the vehicle.
Yeah, it's the first time I've had that feeling in a long time. I don't get scared anymore, like for the most part, but I was definitely had an uneasy feeling about being there. I mean, it just didn't feel right.
So we turn around and we go back down to the vehicle. Well, funny thing is, strange things happen for reasons at times. We got back in the vehicle and we started back out, and
well,
the vehicle.
Let's back up a little bit. So on the way over there, so it's a pretty steep mountain. I just changed brakes on. I have a Tahoe. I just changed my brakes on Tahoe, and we start over there and we go up the mountain and we start down and start hearing what sounded like brakes squeaking. That's what I thought it was when I first heard it. Well, then we started smelling what smelled like hot brake pads. So we continue on. We go to where we're going. We go to the lake that he's talking about, and we go to leave. And as soon as I start the vehicle, you could tell it was belt squeaking, or you could tell it's belt whining. Well, get out, and I've got half of a serpentine belt. Now, remind you, we are 20 miles from town. You're about a good almost 10 minutes from anybody else where we were at. We didn't have service. So, kind of a little concerning. So I was like, we're going to try to make it back to, because there were a couple houses as you get closer to where we were at, probably, like I said, probably about 8 to 10 minutes away from us. And I just, for some reason on the way in, I noticed the only house that had light on. I don't know what made me even think about that, but I was going by, I just happened to notice this light on. And so I was like, we got to make it to where we get service, or to where we can use somebody's phone, or at least have help. And because I was like, we're going to try to make it to this house. Well, we ended up making it. Of course, serpentine belt broke on the way over there, so I had no power steering, water pump, nothing was running. Luckily, we were moving, so nothing ran hot. But long story short, you could tell these people. So we went back to the house, knocked on the door, asked to use the phone. Of course, they let us use the phone, but they were friendly. But you could tell they were like a little questionable while we're out there so late. And so we're all, me, Ricky, and this guy, we're over standing beside the vehicle. And basically, I was just being polite. I was like, I'm just going to tell you why we're over here. I was like, just so you know what we're doing, so you're not like sketched out. You may think we're crazy, but we do Bigfoot research and cryptic research and stuff like that. And I was thinking, this guy's going to think we're crazy, but like I said, I'd rather him know what we're doing. And he's like, why would I think you're crazy? And that's when he proceeds to tell us that he's actually lived over there for 14 months. He works for that property that he actually lives on, and where we stopped at is used to be owned by the Boy Scout Club, or the Boy Scout organization.
No, actually, Girl Scout, Blake.
Or Girl Scout.
Yeah.
Well, they actually shut the lake down, and for some, he's kind of like the caretaker of the land now. I guess you would call it that. He's like, I lived over here for 14 months, and I've actually got pictures of him on trail cams, and just proceeded to tell us of all these encounters that he had. He was like, I've lived quite a few different places in my life, and I've never had the stuff happen to me that I've had happen over here. And he actually told us where this had been happening. So a bad situation, something actually really great come out of it, because without his, his knowledge of that, I mean, we would still be kind of looking in a broad spectrum area, versus where now we kind of know more of where to concentrate our investigations and stuff. So it's pretty awesome.
Right, and the guy's wife was standing out on the porch. Now, Barry, what really made it so interesting, and asking there in front of her if he'd ever done any baiting over there for him. And hey, I'm telling you what, I thought she was going to come off the porch and whoop me with a broom or something.
You can tell she's definitely experienced something that she was not comfortable with.
Right, very, very much so. And no, she was not up for no idea of doing any baiting at all. But yeah, it turned out to be, like Blake said, bad situation. Turned out to be something very positive. And
it was just I don't know. It was like we were meant to go there, because if that would have never happened, we would never met the guy. I could have picked 2 or 3 different houses to go to. For some reason, I picked him, or picked that house. And what's the chances of that being the guy that runs the place or takes care of that land? And I don't know if any of these other neighbors have had encounters, but I mean, I'm sure they have, because they all live pretty close together. But I mean, I could have picked any of those to go to, and it just so happened to turn into a pretty good situation.
Right. Go ahead, Barry.
I can say everything happens for a reason. We talked before that little stuff like that. I don't know if it's guardian angels, divine intervention, whatever that led you to that location and that guy's house, that everything worked out right.
I kind of know what led me to his house. One, because I had noticed the light being on. But the main thing is, like, I don't know why I thought about that on the way back.
Exactly.
There. Like, I just happened, I'm looking, and I just happened to notice that for some odd reason. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, that little stuff, I've always been convinced there's some kind of force behind that. That's the whole, you turn left instead of right, and find out if you'd have turned right, you'd have been in a 16-car pileup or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That little stuff happens for a reason, man.
Right. Hey, buddy, it does. It really does. And, I ended up getting the guy's phone number, getting his email address. So we're hoping, something very positive comes out of this. He did show us pictures on his phone where he had actually captured a picture of this thing out at about, what would you say, Blake? Probably 100 yards or so.
Probably in between 60 and 100 yards.
Right. So, the guy was not lying about what he's experiencing over there.
Oh, no, this is one of the best. I mean, it was one of the better photos I've ever seen of, a trail cam photo of Bigfoot. I mean,
I was going to say, if it was 100 yards, that's a good trail cam, because most of them's only got about
it may have been under that. I mean,
range.
I don't know exactly how far it was. I mean, that's the reason I, estimate probably anywhere from 50, 60 yards to whatever. I mean, I think he told us, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
But he actually went and stood in that same spot where the creature was in the picture. And he said it was about 2 to 3 foot taller than he is. And he was 5'10", I think he said he was, or 11. I think he may have been 5'11". So pretty much right at 6 foot.
Yeah. So that makes it 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Right. And guys, what makes this so unique to this part of the country, and actually all over the United States, as we as a human species build and encroach on these creatures' territory, we're hearing more sightings of these creatures every day on a daily basis now, where years ago it might be maybe one every 5 years, maybe every 10 years you'd get a sighting or a report or something, but now it seems like on a daily basis we're running into somebody that has actually seen these things.
Well, one thing has to do with that is people are more open about it now than they were, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, it's not so much taboo or anymore, or people look at you like you're crazy anymore. I mean, because, social media and TV shows and everything, it's helped people. It's hurt, but it's helped at the same time. I mean, it's brought people that are wanting to kill Bigfoot and stuff like that. It's brought more of people wanting to prove their existence, but it's also helped people be able to tell their encounters. And just like meeting that guy, for example, we didn't know him from anybody in the world, and he happened to just had encounters himself. I mean, that it makes you wonder how many people, if you just walked up to on a daily basis and just brought up the Bigfoot aspect, the Bigfoot conversation, of how many people have had encounters that just never talk about them.
Well, it's not Bigfoot, but I work at a fairly small business. I want to say there's 20 or so employees. I know of 3 that admit to having UFO encounters out of 20 people.
Yeah.
Now that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago.
No.
Oh no,
You wouldn't have found 3
I mean,
people
the
out of
government
20.
pretty much. I mean, they pretty much already came out and said that UFOs exist.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I don't know if you've been paying attention to here especially last year. I mean, they've been a lot of information come out that pretty much in a roundabout way says that we know they exist and we know they're another life form.
Well, I've always said there's 2 possibilities. This goes for UFOs or Bigfoot, either one. Either the government knows about them and just ain't telling us for all these years, or the government's really bad at their job. Because on one hand, you've got something that's coming in our airspace at will, flying around, and they either can't or won't do anything about it. And same thing with Bigfoot. If there's a 8 to 10 foot tall bipedal creature running around North America and the government doesn't know about it, then they're not very good at their job.
Yeah. And we know they know. I mean, look at the Roswell, New Mexico crash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they straight up said it was a UFO.
And then backpedaled.
For 2 days, and then all of a sudden it's a weather balloon. You're just calling yourself ignorant at that point. Like, if you truly cannot, you are the military, and you cannot tell the difference between a weather balloon and a in a spacecraft. That don't make. I mean, it just we yeah. I mean, that's bull crap.
And that goes back to Major Jessie Marcel, who actually went out to the ranch and actually viewed the wreckage area. And then, for 2 days, this man knew what he saw. He knew what he saw. He knew what he found. But guys, can you imagine what this man had to go through, the indignity he had to go through to get in front of those cameras and hold that weather balloon up and come up with that cock and bull story?
Yeah, because I mean, it's like Barry just said. I mean, it's either the government's really bad at their job or they just don't want us to know. And I'm going to pick they didn't want us to know. I mean, they realized they screwed up by releasing information and was like, oh, maybe people don't need to know about it. Or they didn't know what they were going to find in that crash. Once they actually, I'm a firm believer that a lot of our technology we have today, the origins of it come from that crash.
It and others.
It and others, exactly. So, I mean, maybe there's some reason they didn't want, they are some reason they didn't want us to know, but, what that is exactly. I mean.
Well, it was the Brookings report that was a study they did that, according to them, society as a whole wouldn't be able to handle.
Well, no, that's like, exactly. And that's the same with Bigfoot. You tell the general population that we have monsters in our woods, that's going to be detrimental to, one, outdoor activities, two, I mean, just it goes against what we're taught. I mean, it goes against what we were told as a kid, that monsters don't exist and everything else. So I mean, it changes everything. If science goes, yes, this creature exists.
I always said it would upset a lot of apple carts one way or the other, depending on exactly what they are.
Guys, this goes back to the deal when you're a kid and you're raised up believing in Santa Claus. Your parents tell you there's a big jolly guy running around in a red suit with a white beard that comes down the chimney and delivers presents to all good boys and girls. Well, when you get 7, 8 years old, you're kind of devastated to find out that old Santa Claus running around really your mom and dad putting those presents under the Christmas tree. Well, that's the same way with the government, with Sasquatch. They're not going to tell us, that there's a monster out there running around because of the deal, just like Blake said, what would happen to the economy if the general public knew for sure that there's a 10, 12-foot monster out there?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Well, another thing, the UFO community had an advantage. If you remember here, about a year back, they had that Occupy Area 51 movement. Now I think like 20,000 signed up online, and maybe 20 of them actually showed up out there.
Yeah.
Right?
But,
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, when they were going to overtake.
Yeah, they were going to storm Area 51. Now the Sasquatch community's never had no kind of, I don't know what you would storm, the Northwest, but we've never had that kind of push where we was going to occupy.
Well, and that whole UFO thing, that was started as a joke. That was never meant to go anywhere. And, for some reason, once it got, posted everywhere and all this other stuff, and people started believing that they were actually going to try to storm 51, I guess they just went with it. I mean.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason we got what you was talking about, the Tic Tac video and all that. They's like, well, people are getting to the point they're willing to risk their lives storming a military institution. We might as well admit it's real. It's going to come out one way or the other. Well, like I said, with Sasquatch, you don't have a area of Sasquatch you can storm.
And you do realize that one reason we've had a lot of information come out about UFOs here recently. That was one of the things in one of the stimulus bills was the government actually had to release information about UFOs.
Yeah. And the closest we've got with Sasquatch on that was the Wingnut out there in Oklahoma that wanted to start a hunting season for them.
Yeah. Which is not going to
well, now, Barry actually, I was reading an article the other night, and the guy you're talking about, he is actually working with the tourism board in Oklahoma now, and they're actually issuing permits for people to go out and hunt these things. You're having to pay for a permit to go out there and hunt them now, and they're offering a $2.5 million reward for anybody that can capture one of these creatures alive. Now, boys, I'm gonna tell you,
it will never happen. It will never happen, ever. If it hasn't happened yet, it's never going to happen.
Folks, I've had encounters with these things, personal encounters. Blake has had, Barry has had, and, I've actually seen one of them up close. And there is no way, I don't care. I'd like to have $2.5 million, sure, but I am not going to risk, my life for money.
Well,
go out there and
that's what I was getting ready to say. I guess my next of kin would enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about maybe dead, that would be about the only way you're ever going to get a body. You're not going to sweet talk one end to coming in with you, so it can. It hurts my brain that they won't want alive. Like, that is impossible. It would never happen. I mean, how physically is that going to happen?
Well, I've sat back and come up with some harebrained schemes a couple times if I was going to try it
track
I
one
do
or
it.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And about halfway through every harebrained scheme, it's like, well, that ain't going to work. That ain't going to work. How's that going to work? It ain't. They fall
Guys,
apart real quick.
we actually don't know. You know, we have tranquilizer guns that'll bring down elephants, but
Well, that was one of my harebrained schemes right there.
but the deal is we don't know what the makeup of these creatures actually are. You know, we don't know how much tranquilizer it would take to bring something like this down. We don't
And if
know if
you're,
they're we don't
go
know if
ahead.
we don't know if their bodies are the same makeup of ours. We don't know if this would actually work on one. And I don't know about y'all guys, but I'm not going to go out there and try to shoot one of these things with a tranquilizer dart and piss him off to where he's going
Hope to
to.
God it works.
Yeah,
That's
hope to
what I was
God it
going to
works.
say. Well, for one thing, you have to have a veterinarian's license to even own the gun and the tranquilizer, fentanyl, because it's the same crap they shoot up in heroin, which I point that out to people all the time. You realize you're shooting up the same stuff that they drop elephants and bulls and stuff like that with. But beside the point, if you're a few milligrams low, all you done, like you said, is tick. If you're a few milligrams too high, you killed it
You killed it.
Right.
based on body weight and everything else.
I mean, guys, you
Can
know,
y'all
it's
still
a
hear me?
catch. Yeah, it's a catch-22 on this deal, guys. We really, you know, these creatures are so in depth to being able to stay away from humans, to avoid humans. Uh, my feelings is that people that are lucky enough to have sightings or have encounters with these creatures, it's the fact that these creatures feel safe enough around that person to show themselves. Now, guys, you're not going to take a big metal trap out there in the woods, or you're not going to do like they done on Mountain Monsters and run out there and build a wood trap and get one of these things to run in it. I'm sorry, you're just not going to do it.
Yeah. And that goes back to my whole, they're not just dumb apes. If they was a dumb ape, we'd have 1,000 pictures on trail cameras, and we'd have one sitting in the zoo right next to the rest of the apes.
Yep. We're able to capture every other animal.
Yeah. And people always bring up the ghillie ape, it was undiscovered until recently. But the minute we started seriously looking for it, it didn't take us long to find it.
Yeah. And we know we got plenty of people out looking for Sasquatch. I mean, and that's the thing. What so many people don't realize is you hardly ever. I mean, yes, you have encounters while you're out doing field research, but most of your visual sightings are going to happen when you're not expecting it, or you're going about your normal business, or whatever. It's just not going. Most the chance of you just walking through the woods, actually looking for one, and you finding one are probably 1 in a million.
Oh yeah, slim to none. Yeah.
I was going to say, buy a lottery ticket.
That just like my encounter back in 1981. We were float fishing. I didn't have anything on my mind about a Sasquatch. We came off that waterfall. We came down and went around the curve, and there this thing was out on the end of this sandbar, and from what we could tell, was feeding on these what we call freshwater clams around here, mussel. I know you know what I'm talking about, Burry. They all in the rivers and streams down here, and this thing had a stack of them up on the end of that sandbar, and I'm sure that's what it was doing. It was feeding on these things. That thing wasn't expecting nobody to come down that creek. It thought it was in there 100 miles back in there, away from anybody or away from anyone. We came around the creek in the raft, and lo and behold, there it was. Same way with Blake. Blake, and
that's what I was about to say. Is, I mean, most of the time when you do have a sighting, you catch them in their normal day routine.
Oh yeah, you're not going to,
I don't think I've ever actually heard Blake's encounter.
You never heard my encounter?
I don't think so.
Well, I'll just make it as short as possible. So basically, the Alatoona Lake that we were talking about, we had started going down to the cemetery, paranormal investigating, and we'd had some things happen, like rocks being thrown and howls and stuff like that. And at first, we didn't know what was going on. We didn't even think of Bigfoot. I'd got listen after we'd actually heard one of the howls. I'd gotten to listening. I don't even know how it come about. I don't remember. But I'd ended up on YouTube or some platform looking at Bigfoot howls. And I'd actually heard a couple that sounded just like what we'd heard down there, and that's kind of what got us to even thinking about Bigfoot. We started going down there. Well, we continued to go down there, but far as actually like trying to get responses and stuff, of course, the first thing we ever did was as far as howls and stuff, and we did get some responses, and it kind of just turned into an investigative type thing. Like we were going down there for paranormal. We just started going down there on a regular basis. And the more we went down there, the more stuff we had happen. Well, me and a friend of mine, just kind of getting into what actually happened with my sighting. Hang on one second. Clifford? Okay. Me and one of my friends were down there, and we'd gotten out there pretty late that night, and it was actually raining when we got there. And we just decided to stay till the next morning. And it stopped raining that morning. We just decided we were going to walk around. The lake was down at the time, so you could actually walk around the bank. And we just decided that we were just going to walk around the bank, see if we could see any footprints or anything, because it was real quiet that night. We were there, so we figured we'd just walk around, see what we could find. And as we started to walk around the lake, around the shore, we were being paralleled by something in the woods, and we could hear it step when we stepped, and when we'd stop, it would stop. Well, that went on for, I don't know, probably a quarter of a mile, half a mile, and then we decided to kind of move into the wood line, and I don't recall if we continued to hear the paralleling after that. So the one, whatever was paralleling us was completely separate from what actually we saw. There's no way for whatever we heard to get to where we actually had the sighting. So long story short, we moved up into the wood line, and we come through. It's a pretty thick area of smaller trees and stuff like that, and you could see there was cove, and you could see they're like, I don't know, a 12 or 13-foot rock. It's a tall rock. I mean, it's huge. You can see it, and on the back side of it, there stood a male. The female was pretty close to him, and a juvenile. Basically, I don't think they could see us because we were in that thicket. And basically, just long story short, we got probably a 2-minute visual on them at probably 75 yards, 65 yards. And actually, they would have not. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know if they would have left or not. But my buddy actually stepped out from the thicket, seen him. Female picked up the juvenile. The tree line's probably, I don't know, probably 15, 20 foot behind where they were at. As soon as they hit the wood line, it was like they were never there. I mean, that's in a gist. That's my sighting.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
This
Barry,
is one of the rare ones where you saw like a whole family or clan.
Yeah, it was a family. I mean, big male, probably about 7.5 foot, something like that. Female was a little bit shorter than he was. Of course, I could tell. You know, it had lady parts. And you know, the juvenile, it was about 4 foot tall, 3.5, 4 foot tall.
And 2 or 3 minutes, you had a good long sighting. I think the average is 30 seconds, something like that.
That's the reason I wish he wouldn't have stepped out, because I don't know how this, you know, we could have sat there for, you know, no telling how long if he would have not stepped out from the thicket. So
y'all got a comment there at the bottom, I see.
Yeah, I got a response here from Earl Mangrum. They know you're there before you do. And
And I
believe
agree
that.
with that. But as far as my
basically, that's
sighting, I don't know why I had my sighting. I don't know if it was meant to happen. I don't know if we honestly snuck up on them. I don't know. I mean, do I think we snuck up on them? Definitely not. So that's, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, my
Because
two
I
partial
agree with that.
sightings. Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, I do believe, as soon as you're in the woods, they know you're there. So, with that being said, I don't understand why my sighting happened.
well, guys, that's just like somebody walking in your house. Opening your front door and walking in your house. You're gonna know they're there.
Oh yeah.
That's just like it is here. I've got a little dog here in the house that alerts me to any movement here in the house whatsoever. Even tries to bite Blake every time Blake comes over, but that dog alerts me. Well, what's to say that the creatures in the woods don't alert Sasquatch to human activity?
I was going to agree completely because, like you was talking, my two partial sightings, if it hadn't have made a noise and moved, I'd have never known it was there. And one of them, I was probably within 30 foot of it. And if it hadn't have huffed or cleared its throat or whatever kind of noise you want to call it, I'd have kept walking and never known it was there. So, yeah, it definitely knew I was there before I knew it was there.
Guys, here's another comment from Earl. I had one step 6 foot behind me and never knew he was there till he stopped in the water. Well, guys, Blake and I have had these encounters where, I know we were 15, 20 feet from these things and actually never knew they were there until they made a racket, until they let us know of their presence. And I've had so many people tell me of having encounters of this type. It's unreal.
Yeah.
And that's what I went back to.
I was going to agree with you. I've heard encounter after encounter where they say, I looked up and there it was. Like it just come out of nowhere. Well, obviously it had to be there before you saw it. It didn't fall out of the sky. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It's going back to what we were talking about a while ago. These things are masters at disguising themselves. They could be a brush pile there, and you walk all around this brush pile taking pictures, and never realize that there was a creature in this brush pile till you get back and you start viewing these pictures, and then you happen to be able to see an ear, an eye, a forehead, a shoulder, or something that is displaced in that brush pile.
Don't tell me that. The reason I'm laughing, this afternoon I went out to check the trail cams, and all I got on the trail cams was a wild turkey. I put that on YouTube, but I found what looked like a brush pile or a bedding, or I guess it would be a bedding. I mean, well, anyway, I did exactly what you said. I just said I walked 2 or 3 circles around it, taking pictures with the phone. Like you said, there could have been one laying under it, looking at me,
right,
standing there watching me.
You may want to examine those pictures really well.
What's that?
I said you may want to examine those pictures really well.
Like I said,
But you don't want to
like I said, I won't sleep now.
I see a lot of people post pictures.
Go ahead, Blake.
I see a lot of people post pictures, and the power of suggestion. They tell you that you see something, that they see something in the photo, then you start to see something in the photo, but they may not actually be something there. It's just your brain playing tricks on you. So just be careful when you examine photos really hard.
Oh, I've had that happen. I've had people see things in my photos that I didn't see. Well, like you said, once they tell you where to look and what it is you're supposed to see, then you can't unsee it, whether it's there or not.
Blake, did I send you that picture that Richard blew up for me? I got a picture from up in Murray County last week, Barry. I posted it on our Bigfoot page, and this picture was taken about 9 o'clock at night out my brother's back door. And to explain what happened, he had told me that a couple of weeks prior to this, his dogs, he's got like, I think there's 8 or 10 dogs that run loose up there at his house. And he said these dogs at night had just been going crazy around there for the last couple of weeks. Well, this past, I think it was like Thursday night or Friday night, the dogs had started barking and growling, and all of them went up under the house. He said they quietened down. You didn't hear a peep out of them. He said he caught movement out his sliding glass doors. He opened the door, snapped a picture, and it was one of the most wild-looking pictures that I've ever seen.
It's pretty compelling.
I have to check it out.
I don't know what to make of it.
I've been working so much here lately. This is the first day or first night I've had time to do a show or be on a show, or I've barely had time to look at Facebook or YouTube or anything else. Working 10, 11 hours a day.
Hey, man, that's some rough times.
Trust me, I understand. I
Good
work
money, but rough
11
times.
hours a day. I work 11 hours a day every day. I understand.
Yeah. Now, as far as the whole them knowing you're there before you ever know, I've become convinced they're actually smart enough that they can adapt to our schedule. Because there's been nights Mom will tell me, the motion lights are going off in the tree line. Bocephus is going nuts. But the minute you let me pull in the driveway with the truck, everything stops. It's like they know within minutes of when I'm going to be home. And they know to knock it off when I get here, because I'll come out there and look.
Well, I think it goes back to the same deal as like dogs at your house, whatever. I know my dog, my little dog I've got here at the house. He sits on the back of my recliner and looks out the window. That dog knows before my truck ever turns off the highway down here that it's my truck coming to this house. And I think that Sasquatch, being a creature of the wild, does the same thing. I think this thing knows who you are when you're coming into an area, just like I told you about the tennis ball story from Tennessee. They had to have watched that guy. They had to have known what kind of vehicle he drove in there into that area to have done what they done. I mean, they chased those tennis balls down, every one of them, took them back down there and placed them on the hood of his car where he found them the next morning. Now, you tell me.
Bocephus is the same way. Mom said 100 other cars can go up and down the road, which out here, they ain't going to be that many, but you know what I mean. Any other car can go up and down the road. He won't make a sound. She said he'll start 2 or 3 minutes before I pull in the driveway. It's like of course, he's a bloodhound. It's like he can hear my truck and recognize it a mile up the road. She said he'll start prancing around and whining. And by the time I'm pulling in the driveway, he's baying and raising Cain. He knows my truck, knows I'm home.
Right.
Just like you said with your dog.
That's the way it goes.
That's how my Beagle Basset is. I mean, we live on a pretty busy road. But, I mean, it's if either me or my dad come home, he knows well before we ever get to even coming around our curve.
Yeah.
We got to know.
This is the opposite. This road ain't that busy. I've always said from about 10 o'clock at night to 4 o'clock in the morning, a whole herd of Sasquatch could cross this road out here. And nobody'd ever know it. Ain't nobody out there to see them. But I know what you mean. Like I said, a mile down the road, he knows I'm coming. So they could very well do the same thing.
Well, it surprises me, it surprises me that people take these creatures as being dumb apes out there wandering around through the woods, not knowing what's going on. These creatures possess intellect way beyond what we do. I mean, Burry, you take it for instance, guys.
Well, I think they actually still have how to say this. I think they possess some things that we may have possessed at one point in time in history. Far as that, they're still in tune with their sixth sense. They're still in tune with things that we have lost, becoming domesticated over the years. I guess is the best way to put it. I mean,
That goes in line with a lot of what I think right there.
Okay, just for instance, let's take this for instance, guys. We know what these creatures can do. We know how they live. Basically, we know what they have to do to survive. Do you honestly think that if today, Blake, if they took our internet away from us, if they took our TV away from us, if they took our electricity away from us, if they took our food source, the grocery stores away from us,
we would have people dying left and right.
Yeah. Well, it would be like in the 40s when the stock market crashed. You'd have mass suicides. Yeah. You'd have people jumping out of windows off of bridges.
But yet,
the people that don't know how to survive. I mean, there's majority of the day's population, they couldn't even make a fire if you gave them a lighter in the woods with freaking gasoline.
I always said they couldn't find their tail end with both hands on a road map.
Yeah,
that's exactly right, Murray. But yet everybody wants to sit back and say that a Sasquatch is a dumb animal. It's just a dumb creature out there running around with no intellect. People, wake up. These creatures are out there. They're more in tune to nature than we'll ever be. They know what it takes for them to survive. These things are not just here in Georgia, not in Tennessee, not in Kentucky. They're out in the Midwest, out in the far west, where you get 8 and 10 foot snows. Yet these creatures are able to survive it. If they put me or you or Blake out there in a 10-foot snowstorm, what do you think they're going to do? 3 weeks later, they find when the thaw out comes, or 3 months later, they'd find our dead carcasses stretched out there.
That's like there's a guy, one of my coworkers, he said, "Do you ever watch that show, The Alaska Triangle?" I said, "I've seen a few episodes." They've talked about how so many people go missing in Alaska, and I just looked at him and said, "Well, it's Alaska." There's a whole lot of ways to go missing in Alaska that don't got a thing to do with Bigfoot. About like Australia. I mean,
most definitely.
I mean, when you
but
have
that goes.
When you have a place as big as Alaska, I mean, and you have like a very little population and most of the land's not inhabited, I mean, all it takes is you just going down the wrong place. I mean, and nobody ever looked for you there. I mean,
all you got to do is fall and break your leg. Like Ricky said, they ain't going to find you till the thaw comes along.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, that's
probably ain't going to find you then, because by then something else found you and ate you. But
you're exactly right, Murray. You're exactly right.
Well, I was going to say, it's just like Australia. Everybody, I want to go to Australia for vacation. I was like, you realize that's the deadliest continent on earth. There's more things there that can kill you and or eat you than anywhere else in the world. I'd like to go to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there.
I don't even know, man. I don't even know if I'd want to live there. I don't even know if I'd want to go there.
I'd go to visit because it's about as close as you can get to the 1800s American Wild Wild West in modern times. I think that'd be pretty cool to see, pretty close to what the Wild Wild West would have been like, the Australian outback. But like I said, I wouldn't want to live there every day and have to deal with spiders, and if they bite you, your leg's going to rot off, and snakes, if they bite you, you got 3 steps before you hit the ground, and dingoes, and God knows what else.
Well, that goes back to the deal with my dad. My dad was born in 1908. My dad actually knew both of his grandfathers who fought through the Civil War. And I used to sit and listen to tales that was passed on to my dad from them when I was young, and I'd always think, my God, how did these people live through something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to the deal, like I said about it. Those people survived back then with just what little they could grab and snag, and Dad said his grandpa Robertson had told him of times that they'd went for a solid week without having food while they were fighting these battles.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, I couldn't do that.
No.
I mean, could you do that, Barry?
No.
Could you, Blake? Could you jump out here and do it out something to eat for a week and still run around and try to shoot somebody with a muzzleloader?
And that's what's so sad about today's society. The way, people don't think about that. Kids can't even do without a video game now. The world comes to an end if they can't play a damn video game, or if your phone ain't working that day, or internet ain't working. But, our ancestors, all they did was survive. We have it so easy nowadays that people have no clue where humanity came from.
That's true. My grandsons, I have two grandsons. One that's 18, one that's 15. I can talk to these boys. I can say something about a payphone. These boys look at me like I'm crazy. How'd they work, Papa? What did they do? What was the purpose for them? I grew up back in the 70s, the 60s and 70s, and that's all we had back then. You didn't have cell phones. You were lucky if you had a CB radio in your vehicle back then to call somebody for help if your car broke down.
Yeah.
And I drove cars back then from that were manufactured back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And you're all time, Burry. You know as well as I do what I'm talking about. You're all time having breakdowns, something going wrong. First pickup I ever owned was a 58 Chevrolet Apache, had automatic in it, and the transmission lines run up and hooked into a little cooling system on the bottom of the radiator. Every time you'd cross a bump real hard, hit a bump real hard in this thing, it would blow both transmission lines off. The motor didn't use to drop oil, but you had to keep 15 quarts of transmission fluid in the back for when the transmission lines blowed off.
Yeah. Well, that's a funny story about how I bought my first cell phone. I was dating a girl who lives in Lexington. That's about 60 miles south of here. One night I left up there. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was coming down a little old back road called Russell Cave. People watch from Kentucky might know what I'm talking about. About literally almost perfectly halfway between here and there, the car breaks down. 3 o'clock in the morning, middle of nowhere. I don't have a cell phone. I always said I didn't need a cell phone. So I get out and start walking. Well, I ain't made it 100 yards. I hear coyotes over in the field howling and carry on. So I turn around and go back to the car, get the tire iron. I take off walking again. By that time I hear thunder. I turn around, go back, get my jacket out of the car. And it was one of the old leather Undertaker Western style drifter jackets with the hood and the big long tails behind it. So now here I am. It's 3:30 in the morning. I look like the Grim Reaper in this jacket, and I'm carrying a tire iron. Ain't nobody going to answer the door for me. And ain't nobody going to stop and pick me up. And it's pouring down rain. And I walk probably, 8 or 10 miles. About the time the sun's starting to come up, a buddy of mine recognized me from the jacket. Stopped, and I was, even with the jacket, I was soaked to the bone by then. He's like, I thought that was your car sitting back there. What are you doing out here this time of morning? Nothing. I'm going to buy a cell phone. It was the day I decided I need a cell phone. I see why people carry them now.
Well, guys, I had an encounter back years ago where we were over on Talking Rock Creek, over at what they called Cedar Bluffs. There's a cave area over there, and that's back when I was a teenager. I had a 65 Ford Galaxy 500. Luckily had a CB radio in it. But we get over there, and we'd been over there partying that weekend. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. We'd run out of liquor, and I went back to the car, gonna go over to a bootlegger that I knew, friend of mine, pick up some more liquor, and got up there, and somebody had come through and had cut all the spark plug wires completely in two on my car. We were 15 miles back in there away from anybody. Didn't have a way of getting out of there. Nobody, there was just me, and I think there was like 6 people with me down in there. We were stuck. Luckily, I was able to get on the radio, CB radio, and got a hold of a guy that went by the handle of spark plug. And this guy was gracious enough to bring me a set of plug wires all the way over there where we were at. He even stood there and put the plug wires on for me, helped me get the car cranked before we could get out of there. All right, dogs. But it was speaking of people knowing people coming in. There's my grandson coming in. But yeah, Barry, I've been in the same situation you have, buddy.
Like I said, I ain't knocked a cell phone since.
Well, technology, man. That's what makes the world go around. Look at our trail cams we've got, our trail cams, our recorders we've got, our camera systems we've got, our thermals we've got.
Just about everything that's used on a daily basis now is revolved around some form of technology.
Oh, most definitely.
I mean, I'll take advantage of it. I'd be anybody that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong.
Technology. That's just a silly attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking it. You know what I'm saying? But just talking about, how ungrateful a lot of people are nowadays. There's so many ungrateful people that don't even have no clue what it would have been like to live without the luxuries we have today.
All right, guys, and that goes right back to what I was talking about earlier in the show. We're all out here chasing Bigfoot around. Everybody that I talk to, even if these things exist, they're a dumb creature. They're some kind of dumb ape running around in the woods. Hey, those dumb creatures have lived for hundreds and hundreds of years. They know how to live. They live off the land every day. They're not coming in and flipping on a light switch. They're not coming in looking in the refrigerator for something to eat. They're not coming in turning that stove on in there to cook their meals. They don't depend on that. They depend on the knowledge they have in their heads and what God provides for them out here in the wild, and that's what they live on.
Well, my only hope, like I use trail cams a lot because I'm a one-man show as far as investigating and just share them on property. They're not perfect. They make mistakes. Just like the guy you all was talking to, sooner or later, one of them gets a little bit too close to the camera, you get a good picture. Just like prints. For every print you find, there's 50 you didn't find. But they step in soft mud or sand or something, and they mess up.
Barry, you're talking about prints, buddy, and this is something that's blowed my mind for ages. You'll see a set of a trackway that leads out through the snow, out through an open field for 400 or 500 yards, right out in the middle of this big open field, and then all of a sudden these tracks in. What happened? Where'd they go?
That I can't explain. I've never found tracks like that. The closest I've come, one, it was middle field, a hay field like you saw about. And I come across it. It was just a pathway, probably about time and a half as wide as my shoulders. And the grass was just smashed perfectly flat. The hay, weeds, grass, whatever you want to call it. Smashed down through there for, 60 or 80 feet. Just as flat as you please, that you could tell it had been kind of pushed to the side. And all I could picture is that scene from Indiana Jones where the big old rock comes down and starts rolling. But it starts here, 60 feet down here, it ends. and there's nothing around it. I mean, there ain't no trees for whatever made it to jump back in. It's the middle of the field, just a 60-footer long or so, probably 6 or 7 foot wide swath right through the middle of it, in the middle of it. And I have never been able to figure out what made that.
Hey guys, one of Sasquatch's endearing mysteries. That's all I can say.
Like I said, I don't know that Sasquatch made that. I honestly have no idea. I've racked my brain for years now trying to figure that out. Like I said, it looked like a big rock rolled down through there and smashed it flatter than a flitter. But where'd the rock go?
What if it was something that went back the way it came, though? I mean, I don't know what it could have been, but I mean, I'm just,
Well, still, you got that 60 or so foot pathway,
yeah.
and then probably 100 yards or better of more field in either direction. It was just right. It started and stopped.
So they were nothing leading up to it, and they were nothing going past where it ended.
No, well, either end, it just started and stopped. I just stumbled across it. Like I said, I've racked my head for years now trying to figure out what could have done that. Somebody's like, well, something laid down there. It was something 60 foot long.
Oh, I lost Ricky.
Yeah. Somebody said,
I mean, no, it could have been something to do. I mean, the only thing I could think of would be maybe something UFO wise. I mean, I know that's going a little off in, left field a little bit, but I mean,
Oh, yeah. Well, I always say I can't be a hypocrite and believe in Bigfoot and then turn around and tell people there's no such thing as UFOs.
Yeah.
That'd make me the biggest hypocrite that's ever walked on 2 feet. But
well, it goes back to there's so much in life we can't explain. All because science doesn't acknowledge something, so many people think it's not possible, but there's so much we do not understand. There's so much we don't know. I mean, about our universe. I mean, we've only been exploring space, really for what, 60 years?
roughly, yeah.
I mean, it takes us forever to go to another planet. I mean, how do we know what's on beyond, what we can see?
Yeah.
I mean, supposedly the universe goes on forever. How did there's no way that we're the only civilization, the only life form, whatever that life form is. I mean, it could be something very simple, or it could be, something like us, or something totally different, whatever the life form is, but there's no way that we're the only thing out there.
Yeah. Well, like somebody explained to me once, we're carbon-based. Bipedal, carbon-based, symmetrical, 2 arms, 2 legs. What if alien life form is granite-based? As crazy as that sounds.
No, I mean,
you stub your toe on a rock thinking it's a rock when it was actually an alien.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be, the very word alien, they could be that different from us.
Yeah. And I mean,
or they might look a lot like us.
And the word alien could be just bacteria. I mean, there's some type of, there's something out there that is a life form.
Yeah. Different than us.
Yes. Or who to say not us? They could be another Earth out there with human beings on it. I mean,
well, just like the movies, Star Trek and all that, they could look a whole lot like us. Yep. Might be a little different point of years or whatever, but I mean, a lot of the reports people talk about what they call the
grays,
angelics or the whatever. They're just
and
then you got the grays. I don't really get into the whole UFO thing, but I've read enough to know the basics.
Yeah. It just to me, it's something, it intrigues me. I'm intrigued by anything that doesn't make sense. If you can't easily explain it, and it's beyond what most people think about, then it intrigues me. I mean,
well, talk about the disappearing tracks. The only other thing I ever found like that, I was following something that made a trackway, and it went right up the edge of a briar patch. And I'm talking, this briar patch was probably 5 foot tall off the ground and extended for a good 10 or 15 yards in each direction, probably 40 yards wide. Great big briar patch. I circled that briar patch 6 or 7 times. I could never find where any tracks or trackway ever come back out of it. So this pathway I was following, where something had made a trackway, went right up to the edge of it and then never came out. And that was another, made me scratch my head. Was it? And it wasn't thick enough. If it was still in there, I would think I'd be able to see it. And I didn't see nothing, didn't hear nothing, didn't smell nothing. And I just couldn't figure out whatever it was. And most animals ain't going to wade into a briar patch, deer, bear, whatever, coyotes, whatever. They're going to go around it just like me or you would.
Yep.
There's another one. I don't know.
There are a lot of stuff that's unexplainable. This thing about life. Most things, 99.9% of things have a explanation and can be explained. It can be understood. But they are stuff like that just, how? Why?
Yeah.
I mean, no explanation.
Like I said, the one in the field, though, that's to this day in the back of my head. I'm always trying to figure it out. I still ain't got nowhere with it.
Yep. Did he say
I
something?
didn't hear him say anything. He just blinked out.
I don't know. I mean, I can't end the show. He's the one that's got the button in the show. We can wait on him for a few more minutes. He's calling me. Hang on just 1 second.
I think Blake froze up now.
You still there?
I'm here.
Okay. I didn't know if I was going to lose you when... Hang on 1 second. I can't hear you. You there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to give Ricky a minute. I'm going to run and get me something else to drink. What?
Well, I just talked to him. He's the one that just called me. He's having internet problems. His internet went down. So we're just going to go ahead and end the show.
All right.
Thank you for coming on. Yep. I just want to say thank you for coming on, Barry. And anytime you ever want to come back on with us, you're welcome. All you have to do is get in touch with Ricky.
Appreciate it.
Nope, you're welcome, brother, and thank you.
Yep.
You have a
God
great night.
bless. Yep.
Thank you, brother. All right, guys. We're going ahead and end the show. Ricky's having internet problems. As always, guys, thank you guys so much for your support. If you don't mind, if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, bell notification, like, and a comment. Let's give Barry a thank you for coming on the show. Go check out his channel, Prayni and Squatchin'. That's all, guys. I hope everyone stays safe, and thank you guys very much.